Do you know how you know when someone is correct, right, truthful? When all sides say they are not.
Folks, this has been a charade, a wag the dog, where you make up a crime, you accuse the other side of the crime, you call in your friends to prosecute the crime, as your friends collect the cash involved in the very deal-making that is the essence of the crime itself. The whole time, they were the ones lying. They were the ones making it up. They were the ones cutting the deals and collecting the cash. They knew it was a lie. They wrote the lie. They bought the lie, and they paid for the lie. And we're the fools that followed them down the path. This isn't about one defendant.
Today is November 8th, 2017, and the time is 10:41 a.m. I've been sitting here at the park where in May of 4th, 2013, I almost lost my life over a false accusation by a female and the assumption of guilt by 2 police officers. I've been sitting here trying to it's hard. After the event, it took me about a year, more than a year, to come back here and face the spot where everything happened. Now, I'm not going to be blowing my own horn with what I'm about to share, but I want you, the viewer, to be able to make an informed conclusion to judge the type of person that I truly am. So I'm going to share with you the accomplishments, some of the accomplishments anyway, of what I have done since I arrived to this city in this province. So what I've done was I've made a list, which I'm going to be referring to just to assist my memory, and all these things are documented. It's really difficult to be sitting here. So if I look down, I'm just referencing, made some notes here. So one of the first things that I did when I came out here and started working at the organization was I developed a food program giving people on disability access to free, great quality groceries, something that food products that anyone would be eating. It took many months for me to establish this program, and through doing that I learned that transport truckloads of food constantly every day are being taken to garbage dumps simply because a skid, also known as a pallet, or boxes were damaged in transportation. Nothing wrong with the food. Everything from fruit, vegetables, to dairy products and meat. And I remember when I started up that program, it was a few months later, I remember one particular person who came up to me in tears. And I asked them what was wrong, and they said because they didn't have to worry about buying groceries, they were able to save up a little bit of money from their disability to be able to go back to school. And this particular example that I'm thinking about, this person was up there in age. So for them, this was something great. I never realized the impact that my efforts would have on people's lives. Now, some people might question if that evening I was cooperative with the officers, despite any evidence in my other videos proving otherwise, even their own testimony. So I want to give some examples of my cooperation, not only with police, but with the community. So in 2012, before the May 4th, 2013 event took place, I cooperated with the police with regards to several assault matters, one of which took place at the organization where I worked. There was one individual who went after another individual with a knife. Interestingly, all the other staff, including the executive director that I mentioned before, no one intervened. No one stepped forward. And other members of the organization obviously didn't. I stepped in between the two of them, and I'm sure my training and my career history when I was younger made me feel confident in being able to do that. And I had no fear of harm to myself. And I diffused that situation without the use of force or violence, but just by simply talking. And I'm not going to get into any of the details of what or why it happened. I will say that it was simply, again, an assumption and a misunderstanding. And I ended up calming the whole situation down. Now, the executive director was really upset that I did that. Everyone else praised me for doing that, even other staff. I did what no one else could do. No one was harmed. The police were involved, and the person was calm to the point where they were just taken away. So that's one example there. And there was another example in one of the housing units where there was a male who was being sexually aggressive, I'll say, with some of the female tenants in that building. And there was police involvement prior to my intervening, and this person, I guess, would in the middle of the night go up to their doors naked, knock on their door, and wait till they opened it. And I guess there was one event where the police were called, and from what I understand, this person ran down the street naked, trying to get away from the police. And my intervention was to have that person removed from the building. And I was almost successful until the executive director went behind my back and, in layman's terms, canceled my efforts to have this person evicted, leaving this individual in that building with these women. So now we're going to go into 2013. After the event that almost cost me my life and is still going on to this day, actually I have to, there was another time before that where I tried to tell the provincial health services of the abuse that was going on at the organization, or what I knew of possible abuse. Now, going back to after the event, where I was staying, I was renting a room, a basement room, and there was a walkout basement. And one night, a bunch of youths were trying to break into the house, and I didn't know what was going on at first, and I went out and realized, oh shit, this is what's happening. So I yelled up to the landlord to call the police. The police arrived pretty quickly, and I helped in the neighborhood track down these youths, because as soon as the police showed up, they were running through people's backyards and everything. So I helped the police find them, and apparently they had robbed just previously a liquor store, and I found a big magnum of, I don't know what it was, vodka or rum or something, and took it out to the one officer at the vehicle, and he praised me for finding that evidence. And most of the youth, as far as I know, got away, but they were still in the neighborhood trying to find them, and I kind of tried to help as best as I could until I went in. So they never even took a statement from me. No one ever talked to me, because they realized who I was with regards to this criminal stuff that I'm dealing with. And in 2014, there was an individual that I came across who, I didn't know what had happened. He had drove up onto a grass medium and hit a small tree, and he was unconscious at the steering wheel. The impact wasn't big or anything. There was no damage or to anything. It just appeared that he kind of rolled up and onto the grass and hit the tree and stopped. And as it turned out, he had overdosed on some prescription medication. Now, I don't know if it was deliberate or accidental, but that's all I know about that. But I assisted the best I could with regards to that. So in 2015, I was at a park where I like to go. It's by a river. Very big park. And yes, there's huge signs and gates on that park saying the park is hours of when it's open and closed and everything. Unlike the park that's here. So I was at this park and there was this older guy with a female who appeared to be early teens, easy. And as they walked, the parking lot is big and it was pretty much empty. And I was parked in the center of this park. And he took her into some bushes and started taking some obscene photos of her. Obscene would be nude. So I had called the police and gave a description of the car, and while they were on the phone, I followed them. The police were on the phone. I followed the vehicle, and apparently they caught up with them in a very close by subdivision. No one took a statement, nothing, because again, they knew who I was. And there was another event, same park, in 2015, where I just came back from going for a short walk on the little trails that they have there, and noticed the guy parked. And the parking lot again was pretty much empty, and he was parked right beside my vehicle. So when I got up to my vehicle, I backed into the center, more of the center, away from him. Something's not right about this guy. And in a nutshell, he came up to my window here and tried to attack me. And I just kept telling him, "Don't do it. Don't do it." And he came around to the passenger window and tried to get in, and by that time I was holding my phone up because I'm ready to call the police, and he seen the phone, and then he went and attacked an elderly couple that just happened to be walking through the parking lot. Well, first there was a lady in a car that was down from me, and he went after her as she was having a smoke outside of her vehicle, and then I seen her throw a smoke down, jump in the car, and she backed out and took off. And then he went for an elderly couple, and he started coming back towards me, and by this time I have the police on the phone. I assisted the police when they arrived. It's a huge park. To locate the vehicle, and left it with them. And the cop that I was talking to must have known who I was, because he didn't take his eyes off me, and I'm pointing at the vehicle and trying to describe what happened, and he just had this look of contempt on his face towards me. And then when I realized that, I just thought, okay, I'm just gonna leave it with you guys. No police statements, nothing. So in 2016, I continued my pursuit with Provincial Health Services here, trying to tell them about what I knew of the abuse at the organization where I worked. keep in mind, they don't believe anything that I was trying to say in the beginning. And now with, at the time, being an accused person, who's going to believe me, right? Then one night, I went to a convenience store, and as I was at the cash register paying for my whatever I was buying, an employee of a fast food burger place next door had come in terrified about something, saying, call the police, and she was I just remember her being all panicky. So I walked out, and they're all glass fronts, and I looked over, and I seen a guy who would turn out to be the manager struggling with another guy. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't need any shit in my life, but I can't let this go because I don't want... I know I could have prevented it and helped, so I did. I went inside, I assessed what was going on, made sure, if there was any other aggressive people, and it appeared to me at the time was some sort of robbery or something. So I helped, long story short, I helped restrain the guy, and I was trying to calm the manager down. The manager had, by now, the guy in kind of a chokehold from behind, and I was trying to tell the manager to lighten up. We have it under control. You don't want to hurt or kill the guy by choking him out. And apparently there was other people there, and they took off. The police showed up, and once the guy was restrained and everything, people in the area were saying, you're doing the right thing, you did good, and after they were just praising me, and I wasn't looking for that at all. I just did what needed to be done. And the cops at first were, very happy that I did it. And I remember the one cop, and he said, you did awesome and everything else, and he wanted to take my statement, and I told him I couldn't write very well because my hands, I don't have very good use of my hands. And then I said my name, and then he had this blank look on his face. And ran out, said, no, you leave now. He just told me to go, didn't take a statement, nothing. And they had my vehicle blocked in when they pulled in, and he was yelling at everyone to move their police cars, and the one cop said, well, why, what's going on? And he said something I couldn't hear, and they parted like the Red Sea so I could leave. And I said, no, I'm in no hurry, I could stay. And then there was another time where I was in a park, and I was eating lunch, and I had actually just looked over. I didn't even realize anyone was in there, and I realized what was happening. And I don't know, again, at that moment, my interpretation of it, she didn't seem to be too happy, but whatever. And there were kids walking past and everything else, and these people were having sex. And there was one mother and kid, she was trying to get her kid to stop looking. And so I just called the cops, and I said, they they could be more discreet. You know, I don't think people should be charged for stupidity and having a criminal record, especially being on a sex registry or anything else. I mean, people make stupid mistakes. I don't know what was going on in the backseat other than they were having hardcore sex. So I don't know. I just called the police. Said this is. They ended up leaving when they realized that I noticed them. Other people were noticing them. And I just said, well, they're leaving this direction on this particular street. I got the plate number too. So these are just some examples of times since I've been in the city, even after what happened to me, that I cooperated with the police and helped society. And just funny, during sentencing, when the judge was trying to say 2 years less a day because I'm a danger to society, I'm not the one that decided to do street justice on anyone, almost taking their life on an assumption, all over a false accusation. I'm not the one who's trying to not be accountable for their wrongs, divert responsibility, escalating matters into a court case that should have taken a couple of days at best. This event took place May 4th, 2013. The trial began November of 2013. There were adjournments between the officer's testimony of 15 months and I didn't testify until 6 months after the second officer testified. July of 2016, I was convicted of obstruction and assaulting a police officer. 6 months after that, I was sentenced in December of 2016. My appeal at the Queen's Bench was dismissed by a second appeal judge 6 months after that, and now I'm waiting 6 months after the dismissal of the appeal for the conviction for the appeal of sentencing. Anyway, do you know how you know when someone is correct, right, truthful? When all sides say they are not. In other words, somebody who's pissing everybody off. Thank you for watching. Please like and share, and peace be with you all. During their testimonies, the first cop began with this whole false narrative with the female, he was just painting this picture that I was like, I don't know, some evil monster. And basically, he said in the redirects that they did what they did, so I won't do that to anyone else. But there's one thing that I would like to highlight, and this came out in the second disclosure package, that the Sex Crimes Unit spent 3 months in the summer of 2013 investigating me and cleared me of all these allegations, even without my evidence. So when the officers were on the stand, they lied with regards to saying that these things are pending and they want to charge me, but technicalities, there's nothing. I was cleared, point blank, and it's in print in the disclosure package.
The whole thing is stupid. So why do you create a law like that? You create a law like that because you can fuck with the people that you want to fuck with. That's why we do it.
And the only thing they might have done was make me feel bad or challenge my authority at the time. And the only thing they might have done was make me feel bad or challenge my authority at the time.
You can't upset the apple cart at all. You're going to be gone if you do.
Could you just describe sort of what you learned about police culture during those early days?
Yeah, you don't learn about it. You hear the past stories and you see when a cop does something wrong, you see the unions and you see the politicians stand up for the officer. You don't see anyone stand up for the citizen. They just become a statistic, a number that you're going after. That's what you do in policing. You're trying to do what keeps you out of trouble from all of the problems that are internal. Like, I never feared the streets, but I constantly feared other officers. What they fear is that we can get away with whatever we choose to get away with. The laws are to the point where anybody can be locked up pretty much for any time. Like, one of the cases I did in the Senate in Maryland that I testified to was how you can't actually drive a car legally. I mean, it would be impossible. No one can get this car from here to the end of the street completely legally.
So an officer can arrest you at any moment?
At any point in time. So you're the ones that are afraid. And that's our standard in policing, is fear. So if you're afraid, you can do whatever you want. That's the legal standard.
Oh.
So if I am afraid that you can take my life, then I'm allowed to take yours legally.
Where does the fear come from then? Like in the guys that do have the fear, it sounds like you think that a lot of them, or most of them do.
Where pussies. I'm not afraid to say it. They were the people that were afraid before they came in, and just because you got a badge and a gun doesn't suddenly mean you're not afraid.
Folks, this has been a charade, a wag the dog, where you make up a crime, you accuse the other side of the crime, you call in your friends to prosecute the crime, as your friends collect the cash involved in the very deal-making that is the essence of the crime itself. The whole time, they were the ones lying. They were the ones making it up. They were the ones cutting the deals and collecting the cash. They knew it was a lie. They wrote the lie. They bought the lie, and they paid for the lie. And we're the fools that followed them down the path. This isn't about one defendant.